Hi, everybody, and welcome back to WatchHaus. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it last week, but I am so excited to start our new Sunday extravaganza with these two. It has been an absolutely wild week for all of us, so you know what time it is. It's time to reset our watches. So, Fibble,
Oh, I'm
what have
going
you been?
first.
You're going
Heavens.
first because you've got the most to say, I think.
Heavens to Betsy. Well, I just sent out a tweet, which seems to be all I've been doing this week is sending out a lot of tweets about things, saying that we're live at our new time, but our same channel. I have an announcement as well, also a content announcement coming up for this coming week. We're going to call it 1 Point Week because I interviewed Curry Shot, who is the head coach of 1 Point, which is a European contenders team. And he was so pleased with me interviewing him and how that went that he said, I am going to send you all of my players except one, and they're going to interview you too. So over the past 3 days, I have interviewed many people, a lot of people. So there will be a 1 Point associated interview coming out once a day, hopefully starting tomorrow, maybe. I've got to get through Curry Shots, which was the longest of all of them, but I want that to go out first. About halfway done. Let's see what I can get done tonight. Hopefully comes out tomorrow. In terms of what I've been covering, it's just been announcements about Chengdu's been finalizing their roster. You've got breaking stuff happening all over the place, standard off-season, blah, blah, blah. But 1 Point Week is going to be cool and not just standard blah, blah, blah. It's really insightful interviews. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Goopy, I know that you've also been just churning out the pieces, getting some really cool interviews. What's been your favorite moment this past week?
Yeah, I've been a little bit busy. Favorite moment is definitely not school. Been doing a lot of schoolwork, which is the unfortunate reality of being an esports person. You got to do other stuff too all the time. Lame. But I also got to interview the chocolate rainmaker, Tay Zunde. This a little bit ago, put out that piece, and I was hoping, don't tell Tay, but I was hoping for like a lighthearted, funny, like, oh, we'll just chat interview. And he's like, we're going to talk about the state of the game. We're going to solve the Overwatch issue, and we're going to do it in this interview. And he took it like super seriously. It was an awesome interview, really thorough. He again, really took it seriously. So that was neat. And then I did preseason power rankings for NA contenders before the season started. And so I was just following up week 1 this week, made adjustments to the rankings, pissed Reddit off as usual. And yeah, now we're just going to see how the power rankings shake up. Who knows? I'm excited about it though.
Yeah,
what are
I'm
you,
excited.
Katrina?
I've been pretty busy on the casting side of things, just working on South American, Chinese contenders. But yeah, things have been pretty good this week, just trying to keep up. I start the business side of esports with my new job tomorrow. So things are going quite well. So I'm very lucky, but excited to go into WatchHaus because there's so much news to cover. We're going to have some fun tonight explaining some more concepts of Overwatch that some newcomers might not be as familiar with. So tonight we've got our hands full in a good way. So first of all, let's get this news out of the way with, I would say the most exciting thing was that there was a new team announced.
Yeah. One of the, I think maybe, it's the most complete team that's been signed. It's the most fully packaged together thing that's ever been done. And it's Vancouver signing Runaway, the former team from Korean contenders, at a Canucks game. Insane. I love they did it with the hockey team. That's like super cool to me. But
so I talked about this last episode. I'm a San Jose Sharks fan, so I can only love the Titans so much, but the balance is tipped so far the other way because it's the entire Runaway roster. Flowervin was there. She's not with the team. She's sticking with Runaway as a core brand and everything. But she showed up to make sure she supported her boys. And Reddit stalkers took pictures of her, which we've gone over. That was creepy. Don't do that. There's a rule now actually saying you can't do that, which is good. I think the mods acted very quickly and very smartly on that. But the roster itself is awesome. It's just really good. So I'm hyped for that. It is, like Connor said, put together, it just looks very strong and the branding is cool. The green's maybe a little too bright. It's not completely Canucks, but they were going for the same thing. I get it.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought the skins would have more of the green than the blue, And I think if they would have had a more like of the neon green with like accents of blue, it would have really looked cool. But they put in a lot of the blue, and it's really similar to the Boston Uprising blue. I said the
Oh,
word blue
yeah.
about 30 times a sentence. Sorry. But it just like it kind of just caught me off guard a little bit when I looked at the jersey the first time. But other than that, I like you said, I'm a big fan of the branding in general. I think the logo is really cool. I love that it's like Runaway plus Harsha, like two things that
Yes.
Overwatch just
Well
loves
deserved for Harsha too.
matched together. Overwatch, like the community, just is gonna love this team because we all love Runaway, we all love Flowervin supporting Runaway, and we all love Harsha. Back to the couch with Harsha, you know.
I saw a point here in Twitch chat that is definitely interesting. It's the most complete team since both New York and Seoul. Which one of those do you think they will more closely resemble? You know, because Seoul came as a full squad and were middling at best.
Yeah.
And then New York came as largely a full squad with Jonak, which is a notable outlier, and obviously did very well. I think I'm going to call more NYXL. I think Repel, I'm not going to put him on like Jonak level because I have no idea really how well he plays. Beyond that, he's pretty good. But Runaway as a whole they were nothing to sneeze at, right? Like they were very good. So I want to hope that they're more like New York than Seoul for sure, because Seoul was disappointing for people who followed Apex seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah. Katrina, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be more of a Seoul or an NYXL situation? What are you thinking?
That's tricky because not only are they a full team, a full roster, they're used to playing with one another. They're also new to the Overwatch League. So even though they have plenty of LAN experience, plenty of time in the spotlight, that's another factor to deal with as well. How will they be competing against the Western teams of Paris, of Houston, etc.? I'm leaning more towards the NYXL. However, I do not think that they will be as dominant simply because there's a lot more teams this year. You can't be as successful as, say, even Boston with their 10-0 streak during was it stage 3, I believe. So
they're full
I
stage 3 and then 4 other games besides.
So just mathematically, I mean, they're not going to be able to reach the heights of New York, I think, but they're going to be leading closer to that side of the pack than, say, the middle as Seoul did last season.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm kind of the same. I think they'll be in between, maybe like a Houston. Houston was like a semi-complete team that came together, people with a lot of experience together. So it's a little bit different, but I mean, Houston was 6-4 average each stage, like competed for stage playoffs. I think we'll expect at least that much from Runaway, if not more. But I mean, it's hard to imagine with how much hype is built around this team, how much money it took to acquire this team. If they don't produce like NYXL, the disappointment across the Overwatch League, I think would be pretty substantial. I think there's a lot of high expectations for this team.
I've heard that exact argument before about a little team called the Dallas Fuel. I'm scared, and I'm very scared because this team was acquired to win the league, right? Dallas Fuel was acquired because they were the most dominant team in the West. You know, the transition is going to be, it's get in there or get out, like, you know. So it's I agree. I think it's all. I think they'll do a little better overall than Dallas did, just in terms of their management's maybe a little better right now. Their roster has a little more varied experience in undoubtedly a more competitive region, you know. But my heart can't take that again, man. I can't deal with two teams that I like imploding in back-to-back seasons.
Speaking of like heartbreak and implosion, the Gladiators Twitter this week definitely caused a stir with what are they calling it online right now? The Great Debate?
The Great Debate. Something like that.
The Great Panic Attack is what it was. Oh my God.
Oh.
So what happened was that Shaz and Big Goose, the support duo from Finland, have been phenomenal, have been one of the staples of the Los Angeles Gladiators. And they announced on Twitter that thanking that there would no longer be that Finnish support duo on their team. So everyone's freaking out. And then, Connor, what happens?
Then it's the Finnish trio, and they sign Ripa, is that his name? Or is that right?
Ripa.
Yeah, Ripa. So now they have a finished sport trio, and it's like, I got you guys. But it was like 45 minutes after the first one, and so all the people trying to get breaking news, including Felipe from the Game Haus, who had already written a piece in time, had to go back and like scrap it after everything was released. Not cool. Gladiators, not cool overall, but excited for Ripa, I suppose. That's cool.
You know the meme photo of Charlie Day in It's Always Sunny, where he's like cracked out and the wall behind him is covered in strings, and he's just like, that was me.
Great
that
tweet.
was me for
Great
20
tweet.
minutes. That was me. Like, they have to be going to DC. DC must have gotten extra money or realized they just need to get at least one portion of their roster perfect. So they signed Big Goose and Shaz, pulled the rug out from under LA. LA's going to have to bring Pooks and Rolf up from Gladiators Legion. There's no way, unless they sign the Korean support duo from this team over here to make sure they can work with Decay and Roar. I was going. And then halfway through that, hey, we're a trio now. Woo, got you guys. Haha, nerds. And I flipped. I was so mad.
Yeah, the response was a lot angrier than I thought it would be from a lot of fans. A lot of fans were like saying how betrayed they felt, or that when you build such a strong emotional connection to a team, that's unfair for them to use that as a marketing ploy. What do you guys think of that response?
I think it's fair. I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit. I think the idea of a debate of a roster move like that is funny. I think it's a goofy thing. It's a lighthearted thing in general. Like, I didn't think the idea of it was betraying. I just think it's how long they made us sweat it out that we started to get this like feeling of betrayal. Like we've been had at the end of it. If it was 10 minutes, we would have kind of sweated a little bit and then laughed it off. But it was 45, and like people were legitimately stressed. Like, Brandon had time to literally formulate like 10 different things that could be happening. Like, we had that much time to process it, and with more time, you just feel more like a fool when they release it, more Jebaited, and you feel more betrayed. So I think it was the timing for me is the issue. But
so I think I only have two things on this, or maybe three. First, you can't deny how effective that was. All eyes were on the Gladiators for that like hour. There was nothing. The Overwatch League world stopped. It came to a halt. Every analyst, every team, every player, every talent personnel stopped and were like, what is going on over there? That's huge, right? In and of itself.
Yeah.
Two, I'll point out they made a Twitter like moment so you could go back and see all the responses to it in real time. You'll notice that none of mine are in there because they're full of swears. Because I was really upset. I was so mad when it finally came through. I was like, are you? I sounded like our Let's Play with Katrina when we were playing Junkenstein. You couldn't play it to kids, you know? I agree that it could have gone on a little shorter. It could have just been like a quick like 5-10 minutes of absolute panic and frustration, and then like, oh, all right, you got us. But yeah, that gave time from the shock and disbelief. You know, you go through the stages, right? Denial, acceptance. We hit acceptance. We got all the way down to acceptance of like, wow, they're gone.
Yeah,
they're either going to DC or Giganti.
They're gone.
What on earth just happened? And third, I will say in hindsight, it's very satisfying knowing that some people were caught just as off guard as the rest of us. You know, this didn't quite show up in any spreadsheets or anything like that. You know, so certain people who have always tried to stay on top and stay aloof about these things like, oh, I knew that, were just as caught off guard. So at the very least, I have to give them props because it worked. But it hurt. It hurt me physically.
And there's been even more mysteries to be solved on Twitter all weekend. One of my favorites was indeed that very special esports mystery, which was eventually revealed to be the marriage of Monty and Susie.
That's a debate that I can deal with. Yeah. Because I saw so many people, right, like influencers and other media figures and so on, who were like, I'm not big enough to be invited to the esports mystery. I see how it is. All these cool people are going. You know, there's Reddit posts and everything. I knew what it was for months. I have known for a long time and just kept my mouth shut because I'm better than that. So to see everybody just like, what the heck? I want to go to this like conference or presentation or like new product unveiling or whatever it was. And then like the stream started and everyone was like, this looks like a wedding.
Yeah.
This is weird. What kind of, is there a buffet table? Is there a cake? That looks like a wedding. What? Brennan and Sideshow are talking about like a partnership. Like, is this like a sponsorship deal? Like, what's going on? And everybody was freaking out. And then a couple people started leaking in Twitch chat. It's a wedding, guys. It's someone's wedding. And then Jacob Wolf dropped the bomb, bomb because he was there. That was really funny. I'm glad they let him do that.
Yeah, I love watching the stream, and it was Jacob Wolf and another guy. I think it was Darren from someone from ESPN.
Yeah,
was being interviewed. Yeah, was being interviewed by Brandon Sideshow, and Jacob literally is like, "Oh, I'm getting a call," and runs away, and they're like, "That's it!" Like he's literally getting it right now, and he tweeted like 30 minutes later, like had a full story written up, and it's just, I mean, it was hilarious. But yeah, it was hilarious to watch. They call them the clout chasers, people who just found out a way to get there just to be around people with clout, which was hilarious. But the whole thing, it was good. I thought it was the debate of love versus the debate of despair from the Gladiators. So I definitely approve. It was really funny. It was just a big troll. People like Slasher tweeting out the like the fake company or whatever, that Esports America thing. It was just stuff like that's hilarious to me. But
I love the fake slips on the live stream. One of the, I think Bren was probably like, "Oh, is this where we announce our partnership with like Hasbro or whatever?" They're like, shut up, Bren. Oh my God. And it was fun to watch them all get progressively drunker.
Oh, dude,
man.
Crumbs.
Except
my
Golden
God.
Boy, who started pretty early. He showed up like before the ceremony started, was like, "What's up? I'm 12 Angry Orchards in, and I'm about to make it 24. Let's go. I've been drinking with The Rock. I can handle it." Scraw! And just took off.
Hilarious.
And I really liked also hearing Susie's explanation as to why it was kept under wraps for so long. There's some great clips shown of that, of her saying, well, people would have thought that, oh, she slept with Monty, therefore she got this position and that position. And she really wanted to be recognized for her own talents and for her own work. And so that was definitely something that was refreshing to hear from someone so successful. It's very sad that those means had to be taken. I mean, obviously they're a very happy couple, but I hope that one day we come to a time where we don't necessarily have to hide that, especially as a woman in esports. But
it was no surprise to me at all that she threw that out there as well. Just like, what other reason could it be? People already give Susie so much crap. Like the moment the Spitfire started struggling, right? They were like, "Oh, Susie, what the heck?" Not to mention the Spitfire didn't have a head coach at the time when they were struggling. They were cycling through their interim coaches. You know, like there were plenty of reasons the Spitfire struggled. Susie was never one of them. But of course, she's a girl. And it's like, she's an easy target as the general manager as well. You know, like people always target as high as you can target and then work their way down. So like, yeah, it makes total sense that they would hide that because people love to just throw her to the wolves, you know, and that's true of women in general and this field and in many others. So yeah, I got that. I'm sure it must be so relieving to just be able to like, yeah, we've been dating for 5 years. You didn't notice that we have the same cat with the same name, dude? Okay. Yeah, we're married now. We've actually been married for a year. Now we're just getting drunk about it. There's cupcakes.
But no, and just to bring it up very briefly, that has been a common trend. Recently, Paris Eternal announced one of their managers, and they released the statement calling her a mamager, like a momager. And that, seeing that at first for me, for coming from the organization in an official introductory statement, was a bit it made my skin crawl a little bit, to be complete. As Ham Tornado is saying, gross. Ham, come over here.
Yeah, get in on this. This is a conversation Ham could definitely suit herself in.
Yeah, Ham. What does Ham think about this? I want to hear unfiltered Ham.
I want
opinion.
Can you
to I want
pass
to
me those
preface
headphones
this
so we can
with
share?
how I responded to the situation, which is basically like, just let, this is like a girls thing, let the girls decide what it means to them, because like I thought it was weird, but like a lot of girls are like, yeah, I totally want to be like the maternal figure, but then there are just as many who are like, no, don't do that. So I just kind of like, I threw it out there that I didn't want to like have an argument or a discussion about it, and then a bunch of people started arguing about it on my thread, and I was like, oh guys, please leave me alone. So yeah, hi Ham.
Hey,
Pam.
dude.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Goopy.
Let's talk about maternal figures in esports.
It's more than that. If you're self-identifying as that maternal figure, that is one thing, but to be
Yeah.
introduced on Twitter by your boss as filling this very feminine taking care role. Oh, these little esport boys are my babies. Like, I'm just here to make sure that they get their diapers clean. It's sorry, Ham brings out the
No diapers, please.
yeah. What
Brings out the what?
articulate it a bit more better than I can right now.
Oh, well, I mean, it's kind of like it's like exactly what Katrina said. I think you like hit the nail on the head. It's, it's one thing, some women are like, "Oh, I love being a mom." And other people are like, well, given the culture in esports and already, women filling a lot of thankless jobs with, no props. Everybody's just like, of course she's going around, doing laundry and stuff. It feeds into these lazy and negative stereotypes, and people are like, well, you should avoid that. I think the biggest thing that we need to remember is that an org did this, right? It wasn't like Lisa was like, hey, I can't wait to like come over and like
That would be totally different.
Sure.
Take care of like this team and stuff. I love all these boys so much. They're like my sons or anything like that. It was like, hey, guess what? Because here's the thing, like manager is an important role, right? And it's boiling it down into like a thankless job, right? Like behind the scenes, holding everything together with very little with very little credit, right? And it's just like super gross. Like, okay, maybe they're just French or something and it's different, but I think you need to like you need to remember your audience, and you need to and it's not just about intent, right? It's about what actually comes across. And I think that's like the bigger issue, because like just like hearing it, you're just like, right?
And just there's so many different types of women in esports too. Like, we're totally different in terms of what
we're the same.
Yeah, look at the family resemblance.
Sisters.
But no, we want such different things in our lives, and we have very different personalities. And when all of these generalizations are made of women in esports as a whole, especially for maybe women who don't necessarily want children or are not, it's a very narrowed viewpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think Ham, you made a good point with the intent bit. I don't think Paris meant anything malicious by this, but I think as an organization, they have to be more cognizant of what they're putting across, like the message they're sending, as you said, about what the implications are of calling their person a mom, calling them a manager a mom, because momager or whatever.
Mama.
That's even more old-fashioned. Yeah, let's take it straight to the 50s. Take it back to the 1920s. Say mama.
Like, none of the male managers have been called that either, so it's like
and the ones who do, like Taz Mom is super famous, right, on the Dallas Fuel.
Yeah.
All the way back in like Team Envious, he was like Taz Mom, and it was super cute. But that was like, an endearment, that the players gave him, right? And like that the community is like, oh my god, I love Taz Mom. He like works so hard and everything and stuff like that. So it is very different. And I think like something that people are going to, like orgs and companies are going to realize more and more as esports diversifies is, like ideally we're all just people under the sun, or whatever. But like anytime you take on somebody who is not the majority that's already represented in esports, that's an extra responsibility, right? So anytime, and it's, like you and I already feel that as just by being women in the space, what we say, what we do, how we act has the extra burden of not only being like, oh, well, Ham said that. It's like women are like that, right? So any org who takes on like somebody who's a woman, somebody who's like a minority, LGBT folks, right? You have to be very aware that this will influence people's judgments of not just that individual that you hired into like an important place in your org or your team, but the entire community overall. So it's like you have to be aware. So
Yeah.
That's something actually I picked up from running Overwatch Score in the months that I ran Overwatch Score, when I finally wrestled control in a bloody gladiatorial arena, or however the heck I did it. I don't remember. Yeah, exactly. I swung my sword around, right? That's what guys are supposed to do. Anywho, all the people I hired were like women, people of color, LGBT. I made it a point to bring people on whose voices were not being represented already, in the scene, but bringing people of that stripe on is a responsibility and requires an understanding, a social understanding of what you're doing. You know what I mean? I can only speak so much on it as the straight white guy. I'm half Mexican, but like you could never tell. So yeah, it's like a whole process. It's so much more than just like, I've brought on this person to do this job. It's like, I've brought on this person who will also be judged and labeled by these other criteria. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling that from you guys, and then from the Paris.
We're kind of making it sound like super negative or something,
Yeah.
but
it can be so good. Yeah, like
Yes.
bringing those people on will
also
give you more than you would ever have from just having like this, like 20 of me. Then you would have nothing but really bad plastic masks, and nothing actually of value.
A whole pile of seagulls is called a flock.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
you would just have a flock of seagull men, and we would stand there and not say anything, and nothing would get done. We'd all just kind of look at each other, and that just wouldn't be very productive at all. So
yeah, it's a big
I feel that's a good
responsibility,
metaphor. Yeah.
But it's also a really good opportunity, right? And that's the really positive side that I think is much greater than any kind of like, oh well, now we got to be careful, right? But no, it's such an opportunity to set a precedent, right? That like, esports is diverse, just as diverse as its viewing audience. Like all the people who are working behind the scenes too can represent like the faces that are watching.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And that's why it's such a big deal that this one and Boop, her casting partner, are casting North American contenders. Like both Boop and Ham are making history in their own ways. What are you doing?
No, I'm making history.
You're making faces.
She's kicking ass is what she's doing, Katrina.
Exactly.
She's kicking ass.
But seriously, it means a lot to see people leading the way, to see someone who looks like you. Yeah, once again, we're identical.
Identical, yeah.
But no, to be able to hear someone who has the similar intonation as you, or
Yeah.
I love the Ham. I love the PogChamp gasps that we get during your cast when a bomb goes off and Boop is doing play-by-play, and you just hear like those are always fun. Those are great.
mean, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm made of about like 40%. It's like a 40-50 depending on the day percentage of gasps and grunts. So yeah, I can definitely try to
don't
tone
forget
it
the
back.
clearing of the
Yes,
throat.
and also phlegm. Yeah. Yeah, my whole suitcase is just packed full of Zyrtec to try and hold that back.
We should make a soundboard. We should make a Ham
true.
soundboard so we can just like
We could make it from Twitch clips right now. We have all of them on file now. We just clip all of them and play them back. Yeah.
Now we've got you.
Okay.
We got it. It's already done. Yeah.
She could probably sue us for that. I don't think we have her. I think she's got us. We just admitted we were gonna. Let's talk about Silk Thread. Hey, man. Silk Thread. That's a situation and a half. Bye, Ham. I wasn't necessarily kicking you out, but yeah, like this. Yeah, this is no longer a casting discussion, so it's your call. Bye.
Oh, rip.
But yeah, Silk Thread, dude. I want to talk about that because for those of you who don't know, I'll see if we can pull up the link to his twit longer because it was way too long for a tweet. Basically, he was going to be signed to Chengdu and then retired, like signed the contract and then retired, like signed the release form from the contract, specifically because it was just too much for him at this point. I think his main reasons were the game's not that fun for me anymore. I'm playing way too much of it, and I have to do everything in Chinese because this is a Chinese team. And while I speak Chinese, that's just a little more mental strain, like the last little bit on top. So like I feel for the guy because he's a great player. It did very well on both of his organizations, although you didn't see him much on stage. I know for a fact that he was helpful.
Yeah.
So to see him go like this hurts.
Yeah.
There's a lot about the scene that we've all kind of like known and seen a little of, but this is maybe the biggest profile example so far. What do you think?
It's. Do you guys think? I'm curious. Sorry to ask another question to answering a question, but do you guys think it was going to happen inevitably? Do you think it was just Silk Thread? It was going to happen, or do you think it was something with the Chengdu situation? Because I know in his tweet longer he talks about about Chengdu and the Chinese and stuff. But do you think if he's with another org, this still happens, or do you think it was just time?
I think so. What do you think, Katrina? Go ahead.
It's hard to say. You don't know the personal situation
Yeah.
of this man, and
Sure.
especially when you are going into a completely different environment, different norms, different living conditions. That adds extra stress. Burnout has been a factor for so many different players, coaches, content creators, everything you can think of. So I'm not sure if it's fair to say that it was inevitable, because there's so
Sure.
many factors that do eventually contribute to that final decision. However, it's understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the blame will go to one specific thing. I don't think it'll go to Silk Thread or just Chengdu. I think it is a larger burnout problem. So I do think that is an issue as well. But it's just tough to say. I mean, when you've been in the game this long, like Silk Thread has, like Siegel has, it's just hard to expect them to keep churning out 10 hours a day at the same game they've been playing for, 5 years now, if you play on start and close beta or whatever. So I know, it's tough because he's still a pretty young guy. You think the career is going to keep going, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's a variety of things. It's hard to say, but
As a history major, in the field we have a saying that is, history was never inevitable. So I don't think there could have been any number of different things that would lead to him staying or going at other various times. I definitely think that moving to China and you will only speak Chinese now with this team. You will not speak English or Korean, no matter who's playing. You guys are all going to speak Mandarin. Even with his understanding of the language, having to swap to that is a thing. Being in a new place is a thing. Those definitely contributed. But like Ham is saying in chat, for anybody following along, he never planned to go pro, really. It just kind of worked out that way. And he got his year of contracts and being paid to play and living the dream. And he's wanted to go to business school. Now he's got the chance. He won't have to pay a cent for tuition for the first 2 years, because UC's, the places he applied to are all pretty expensive, but also very good. So a hefty push towards his college off of 1 year of this. And, maybe he'll come back. Like you said, maybe he'll come back, use that business degree in some other capacity involving esports, so it sucks that it went that way. And we could talk about whether or not he would retire if he had stayed with the Gladiators or whatever, all day. But ultimately, I think it's a positive for him. I'm definitely happy for him to I'm going to go apply to a great college, get an awesome degree, not have to pay that much for it, if at all, and then use that job to do something else cool. It's not like I'm quitting the Overwatch League and now I have nothing and I will be poor and destitute and you'll never hear from me again. So at least he's got that going for him. I'm happy for him in that regard.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it sucks. That's still the burnout. You wish that didn't happen. I'm sure the ideal fantasy realm is that you can spend the rest of your life playing video games, right? But we've learned that especially in this league, that's not quite the case.
And then even though players and coaches also get burnout, I feel like a lot of viewers have been struggling with watching Overwatch, as much because of the prevalence of that triple tank, triple support GOATS composition. And that has also sparked a major discussion between coaches and players on Twitter as well. With there's been a variety of opinions whether or not you should stay on anti-GOATS, whether you should keep continuing to play GOATS. So Connor, Brandon, what do you think about some of the comments that Stux made, etc., Fact Fiction have been saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of the debate is whether playing GOATs against GOATs is lazy coaching. Whether you can just line up against them with the same comp, it's good, and you can play it, and you're giving yourself a chance. I don't think it's laziness. I think coaches have pointed that out, and players have. I just think it's simply the best meta right now. I think until there's something that is figured out that is a hard counter, I mean, maybe looking at some of these Chinese compositions that come out during Chinese contenders. I mean, maybe honestly giving some of these a look in scrims and just seeing, if we run 5 DPS, can we outdamage goats quickly enough, or something, crazy like that. I think that takes a lot of work, and with these players, especially in contenders, just don't have the time to experiment with all these different counters to goats without giving away what they're doing. So I think for the time being, you just play what's best, and especially if it gives you a good chance to win, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If something comes along and with these PTR changes that just totally changes that, or goats just seems less effective all of a sudden, then maybe you switch away. But that's been the main debate I've been seeing. If there's other, I couldn't speak to much other. Brandon, if you have anything.
I kind of want to throw some background in before we start talking about the various considerations that have been made to like what comp you should be running right now and everything. For those who have no idea what we're talking about with this whole Twitter discussion with a variety of coaches and players and so on, this has just kind of been a discussion that's been happening for maybe a week. I mean, frankly, ages since GOATS comp came about. People have been talking about what can we do against it, because at this point we've reached like it's kind of stale. Like GOATS comp at first was like, whoa, that's crazy. You just throw people and like things happen and like you win fights, super dominant. But now obviously it's been a bit, we got tired of dive comp. We got tired of Beyblade. We're getting a little tired of GOATS. So many, many coaches and players and everything are saying like, I sure wish that GOATS was not very dominant right now. And teams are trying to act on that in certain ways. If you watched Mayhem Academy's game last week, you'll notice that they hardly ran GOATS at all. They were trying very hard to run counter GOATS or Sombra Doomfist, projectile spam, anything they could to see what could break GOATS, right? And there were comments made that some people interpreted as like, if you're playing GOATS, you're just kind of lazy. You're just using what works. You're cheating. You're letting the meta carry you. And that sparked a lot of discussion because GOATS, especially in coaches' eyes, who look at this from like a very big brain sort of perspective, see the intricacies of GOATS, of which there are more than a few. And while they might agree that it's a little stale, definitely don't think it's a no skill comp like a lot of people will think. And then, of course, viewers have, as mentioned in the chat, even right now, viewers have noticed that casters are maybe getting a little tired of GOATS in certain regions. And then that kind of feeds them in turn. They're like, well, let's get out. I'm sick of GOATS. Let's go. Although I have noticed that many casters have heard that and started saying, we might hate it, but GOATS is here. We're going to make sure people are educated and still entertained by the games, regardless of what we think about the comp, which I think is definitely the play. Since then, the discussion has turned to basically like, why wouldn't you try to counter GOATS all the time? Or why wouldn't you run GOATS all the time, given that it's so good, and back and forth and back and forth. A point that I thought was really interesting, I've seen a couple spicy takes, is that given the current rule setup for contenders, given that next season all academy teams will be in, regardless of if they won or were relegated or whatever, that these teams will play whatever they want because they don't have to worry about making contenders.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the unsigned teams have to win. Well, it's not like it matters. They're still going to be relegated, but they at least want to win before they get kicked out again so they can be picked up by academy teams.
Yeah.
So it's sparked an interesting discussion that ties into the rules as well, because think about it. If you don't have to worry about whether or not you win or lose, and you don't necessarily think that you can take it all, at least educate yourself in some live matches, right? So that's been a discussion that's been had. And then, of course, those academy teams are like, no, we're definitely going to try and win with this non-meta comp all the time. We're trying to show our flexibility. And that's a whole debate and a half.
Yeah.
So it's been a very interesting discussion. Sorry, I wanted to make sure there was some perspective on what's been going on, but it's a can of worms. It's a whole thing. It's very complex, but I'd love to see the discussion.
Yeah. I think that's the Mayhem Academy game is especially, I think, what sparked that discussion. But I think in the end, if you're Mayhem Academy and that's really kind of the idea is like, we don't have to win, like let's just try some stuff out. I think if and this is a huge if that's what's going on, I think the players really need to evaluate that, because you're trying to get picked up by Overwatch League teams, and you're not guaranteed to just get promoted up to Mayhem. You need to be playing your best Overwatch week in, week out to try and take that next step, never taking a week off just to mess around with comms because you don't have to win. So if that's happening, that seems like it's a really problematic move for Overwatch players and contenders trying to move up. I would think anyway, but.
So since we're talking so much about this composition, I think that it is vital to discuss what makes this triple tank, triple support composition so impactful and talk about the different variations of it. So GOATS used to stand for the greatest of all time. This was a team that decided to run a composition that was predominantly with Moira, Brigitte, Lucio, Reinhardt, D.Va, and Zarya. However, as we've seen more and more iterations, there's definitely some pros and cons of each support you put in. And there's been a lot of additions in terms of tank play, throwing in the Winston, throwing in the Wrecking Ball. So first, I'd like each of us to discuss a different formation of GOATs or a different factor of GOATs that you think might not be super obvious or that differentiates one triple composition from another.
Can I talk about the support, the different supports that you can slot into a standard GOATs comp? Okay, sure. I want to take that one because I've actually been looking at that a lot because I just swapped to support. So the three supports that you can play around with right now are either a Moira, a Zenyatta, or an Ana. And then you always keep the Brigitte and the Lucio for the speed boost, and because Brigitte is Brigitte, right? Oh, hey, Rob's in here. What's up? He's gone. The supports basically decide how you approach the fight. Moira is the OG, that's like pure GOATs, I guess, which allows you to move more quickly and I guess indiscriminately because you're just spraying down heals, right? Like you don't have to worry about making sure your Ana's positioning is okay or dealing with a Zenyatta having 200 HP and no mobility. That's like the OG. Ana is really good because GOATS comp is all about high sustain and healing and everything with the Brigitte and the Lucio and whichever other support you have. And Ana's got a biotic grenade, which makes heals not happen anymore. So an Ana GOATS comp will specifically make sure or do its best to make sure that the enemy team gets bio grenaded, they don't get any heals, then you walk in and you beat the crap out of them before they can start healing up again. And finally, a Zenyatta GOATS comp takes a slight hit in sustain heals until the Transcendence comes up, obviously, which is huge, and trades that out for, of course, Discord Orb, which gives you 35% increased damage on a single target, which gives you an immense advantage in the Reinhardt 1v1, which is right up front, very important. If your Reinhardt is fighting a Reinhardt that's taking 100 damage instead of 70, you're in good shape, you know? So, like, managing those is a part and parcel in and of itself. You know, that's a process. But those like iterations have all kind of like cycled through like which one of these should we use. I would say Ana is slightly the more popular one, followed by Zenyatta and then OG GOATs after that, which is interesting in and of itself, but I think pretty telling about the strength of Ana and Zenyatta.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk a little bit about not necessarily, it's been called floats, so more of a dive-oriented GOATS comp, which I love. I love playing that more than anything. But so that would be with throwing in a Winston to dive as well with D.Va, and then maybe even a Wrecking Ball on top of that, so you have full tank mobility. I would be really interested to see those three tanks with a Zenyatta, a Moira, and a Mercy, because those are all support characters that can move anywhere. Zenyatta and Mercy being able to move vertical as well as horizontal. They can get on the high ground as well. And just running a GOATS that never stops moving. So if you run those three tanks and those three supports and you Lucio speed boost with Moira, AoE healing, multi-target healing, and then Mercy either focusing someone or damage boosting a Ryan maybe, you have just this vicious thing that can constantly move, especially on like a point control map. You could just constantly be circling the point, going different areas like that. So that's one I would be interested to see more of. I think there are part of the reason why watching GOATS is hard is because it's so typically the Reinhardt v Reinhardt battle, and that's all people see. Either the observing is really focused on that, or that's just what we watch because it's on the front line and it's exciting and we love watching Reinhardts go at it with each other. So any GOATS variant without a Reinhardt, I'm super interested in, because I'm interested to see how diving can work with such a lump hero health pool and all this healing behind it. And it would make the enemy Reinhardt not be able to do the normal thing, have to be a lot of adapting on the fly. So that's one I'd be wanting to see more of. You don't see it a lot. You typically do see a Reinhardt even with like a Winston dive a lot of the time. So we'll see. Might happen, but either way, I like it. Want to play it more. So yeah.
So a lot of the times when you're discussing GOATs, you need to think about what the other team is running. Are you going to have a mirror matchup? And if so, what are you going to switch to? So in terms of what I think is best, it really does depend on what the enemy team is running. Are they running a straight mirror matchup? If so, which healer are they running? Which tank are they running? What map are you on? So for example, when we're looking at the contenders map pool right now, there's so much opportunity for verticality and consistency, consistent damage on these maps. So let's take, for example, Numbani, first point. In South American contenders especially, we have been seeing a lot of Winston, Diva, Zarya, triple tank, triple support, GOATS composition. And so what I love about this comp is that it's usually accompanied by the Zenyatta and the Brigitte from what I've seen, although it does also vary on specific players' hero pools. The reason I love this composition is not only for the diving nature, but your Winston just feels invincible at the moment. When it has that orb of harmony, when you get that extra armor from the Brigitte, when you dive in and get that particle barrier from your Zarya and go into that backline trying to take out those extra supports from the enemy team, I think that's an extremely effective